Hi guys, today I want to talk about one of my favorite topics in relation to the nervous system and fight or flight defense physiology. I shared a video last week about how the fight or flight response works and everything that it downregulates and changes in our body and how it affects us. And today I want to talk about one aspect of that, which is the consciousness or thought patterns related to fight or flight, defense, survival mode physiology, and why it is no good if you are up to anything extraordinary or desire to live a really wonderful, joy-filled, resourced life. So I think it's helpful to think about why the thought patterns that occur in defense physiology occur and what they're useful for if we're actually under threat. So remember that our fight or flight response gets triggered when our body feels like we might be under threat. And it's super useful if we actually are about to avoid getting hit by a car or running away from a hungry tiger or surviving something actually dangerous. The problem is that most of us live in a state of perceived threat almost all the time throughout our waking hours, so that things like a full inbox or a looming deadline or coordinating your busy family schedule or even something like a rejection in a personal relationship are all perceived as an actual threat that potentially threatens your actual life. And your body kicks you into this mode of physiology, which basically helps you survive a threat. And you can think of that as survival mode is just in that mode, your body excels at not dying, but that's pretty much it. So you're programmed to not die. And you can do that really well, but that's really different than living well. And I also like to think of this as survival mode is like playing to not lose, and our natural restorative thriving state is like playing to win. There's a really big difference, and I want to touch on the ways that this might be impacting you in your actual life. So some of the things that happen when we are in a physiological state of survival, so this response has been activated, whether we're aware of it or not, we're under a lot of stress. If you ever are saying you feel stressed, it's likely that you are in this state of physiology. One of the things that happens is that we tend to be easily triggered and on guard. So if you think about how that might help save our life, if there's a predator lurking around, you want to be, easily triggered and taking things personally and getting out of the way and things like that. Great if, again, you actually need to survive some kind of attack. Not so great with your intimate relationships or working with a team on a project or things like that. So if you notice yourself feeling easily triggered, on guard, taking things extra personally, it's a really good sign that your physiology just needs a reminder that you're safe. You can take a minute to take a slow, deep breath, and sometimes that can be enough to just switch your physiology back into a more restorative state where you're able to think of other people and see things from a big picture perspective and not take things personally. Another thing that we do that affects the consciousness in survival mode is we focus on problems. So if we're trying to save our life, we want to know what the problem is and how we don't die from it. Again, this is really helpful if we actually need to avoid dying, but if you're working on a project, or even think of this in terms of a relationship, how helpful is it to be pointing out all the problems in this relationship versus seeing all the things that are working really well and putting your energy and attention on those things. It's the same thing for creative flow. If you are so spending all your time and energy focusing on what's not working in your business, what's a problem, what just keeps not going well for you, you're literally closing off your consciousness to noticing all the things that are going right, to being open to new ideas, if you're super zoned in on just focusing on problems. Another thing that happens is we feel like we don't have enough. So in survival mode, we need to get what we need to survive. And so the thought patterns that help us do this are giving us this drive of, I need more, more, more. So this can show up, I think this is one of the most fascinating ones, is this shows up as not feeling like you have enough time, not feeling like you have enough money, not feeling like you have enough support. And if you think about it, consumerism really thrives off of the majority of the population being in a constant state of survival, because we are using buying things and obtaining more things as this sort of false soothing mechanism. We're trying to soothe that need of that drive of I need more, I need more, I need more. We're trying to hoard our resources, make sure we have everything we need to survive a time of drought or famine or things like that, except that our consciousness uses real life things and Amazon, to help us make sense of this kind of drive that we're having internally. So that can be a good thing to notice, that your body is needing some nervous system care if you're having lots of thoughts like that. Another personal example is there tends to be, and think of if you're being chased by a predator, you scan for escape routes. So I know that several times in my life when I've been through extremely stressful events, like deaths of loved ones, and I've been in a really stressful grief state, in particular, it's probably happened with other times, but if I get under a lot of stress, I immediately have this thing. It comes up almost every time that I feel like I need to move. I need to move cities, I need to move apartments. And that is just this sort of looking for escape routes. My body registers, oh, we are under a lot of stress, we need to get out of here. When obviously that's not the case if I'm just under stress. So that's one that I really noticed about myself, and it's just super helpful to understand the physiology so that you don't spend a bunch of time going down a rabbit hole thinking you need to move, when really you can say, oh, I feel like I'm scanning for escape routes here. My body must be feeling really stressed. I need to double down on caring for myself, take some deep breaths, put my feet in the sand, feel grounded. Those kinds of things. So I'm thinking if there's one other thing is we tend to be self-interested. So if you think about that, if you're trying to save your life, you can't be looking out for everyone. Everyone just needs to look out for themselves. And so obviously all of these things I'm sharing aren't great recipe, right, for being of extraordinary service in your life and in the world, and having connected, loving relationships, and of thinking really creatively and innovatively. So when we're in a state of survival and we're focusing on these things and we're easily triggered and we're focusing on problems and I feel like we don't have enough, the same thing is happening in our life that's happening in our body. All energy is just funneled into this task of not dying, which is just a really sad way to live, right? It's not dying is not enough for me. So that's why I feel so passionate about understanding this and using tools in my life to leverage my physiology, to leverage what I'm made out of, to get into a really resourced state so that I can use all of the capabilities that are built into me versus functioning from this place of basically not dying protocol. And then I want to share that one really funny thing that happened to me recently is that my message basically slapped me in the face. And I had this huge realization that I was operating in a mode of survival in my business, which is super ironic on multiple levels because a huge part of my business and working with people in self-care and empowerment and mindset management is teaching about survival mode and how it impacts everything. And so I just want to share that this can be really tricky, and even someone like me who talks about this all the time, teaches about this, loves this, studies this, it was tricky. I didn't realize it was happening until I made a shift. So basically, I was having a lot of fears and limiting beliefs come up because I left a really stable job and income situation to take on my business full time. There's a lot of uncertainty and all these things. And I was having a lot of fears and limiting beliefs come up. And I actually worked with a coach and really dialed down and shifted these beliefs. And almost instantaneously, I had this total shift in consciousness around my own inherent safety and security. And almost instantaneously, I had this flood of creativity and clarity and vision and intention around my business and my offerings that I was not seeing before because I was worried about what should I say, how am I going to make money, what if people don't like it, this and that. I was in this place of trying to survive and just focused on trying to make my ends meet instead of centered in my vision, my purpose, my message, and being true to myself and really serving just the people that I want to work with. And as soon as I got clear on that, immediately all of the energy shifted for me in my creative process. So these are some of the ways that stress physiology might be impacting your thoughts, and I'd love if you would share in the comments if any of this resonated with you or if you relate